All right, today we're going to dig into one of the most intense and dramatic political transitions in ancient history, the rise of King David. We're jumping into the first 5 chapters of 2 Samuel, and let me tell you, this story has everything: grief, civil war, betrayal, and this patient, step-by-step creation of a kingdom.
So everything kicks off with this massive question. Israel's very first king, Saul, and his son Jonathan, they're both dead, killed in battle. The nation is in total shock, completely rudderless, and a huge power vacuum has just ripped open. Nobody knows what's going to happen next.
But here's the thing. David's first move, it's not political. It's not some calculated grab for power, and it is definitely not a celebration. Instead, it's this raw, public, and just profound lament for the king who tried to kill him, and for his best friend Jonathan. And that one act of grief, well, it tells you everything you need to know about the kind of leader David is about to become.
So here's how we're going to break this story down. We'll start with David's lament. Then we'll get into the kingdom splitting in two and the long war that follows. We'll see how David's commitment to justice, not revenge, paves the way for that final, incredible moment when the kingdom is finally united. So let's get into it.
All right, chapter 1. The news of Saul's death finally arrives, but it comes in a way nobody expected, and it creates the first big test of David's character as this leader in waiting.
You've got to see the contrast here. On one side, you have this Amalekite messenger who sees tragedy and just smells opportunity. He runs to David with Saul's crown, making up this whole story about how he was the one who killed Saul, thinking he's about to get a massive reward. But David, he's horrified. He doesn't see the death of an enemy. He sees an attack on the sacred, God-appointed office of king. So his response isn't to celebrate. Nope. It's swift, decisive justice.
And this moment right here, this is the absolute cornerstone of his entire future reign. David's first public act isn't to grab the crown, but to honor the crown, even when it was on his enemy's head. He's sending a crystal clear message. This new kingdom is going to be built on principle and divine order, not on sneaky, opportunistic violence.
Okay, let's move on to chapter 2 and see how this all starts to build. The mourning period ends and the political reality kicks in. And that reality? A nation splitting right down the middle.
So here's the breakdown. David is guided to Hebron, where his own tribe, the tribe of Judah, anoints him as their king. But at the same time, Saul's crazy powerful commander, a guy named Abner, he's not about to let Saul's family just fade away. He takes Saul's last remaining son, Ishbosheth, and makes him king over all the other tribes. So suddenly, you've got 2 kings, 2 capitals, and one nation literally split in 2.
And, it doesn't take long for this political split to blow up into actual civil war. The 2 armies meet. What starts as a sort of contest between young soldiers spirals into a full-blown battle. And in all that chaos, David's hot-headed general, Joab, has his younger brother, Asahel, killed by Abner. Now, Abner basically begged the kid to stop chasing him, but he wouldn't listen. And with that one death, the civil war becomes a deeply personal blood feud between the 2 most powerful generals in Israel.
The takeaway here is pretty stark, right? A divided house just can't stand. And when a national conflict gets personal, the road to peace gets so much longer and harder. This grudge between Joab and Abner is going to cast a long, dark shadow over everything. Which brings us to chapter 3, which is all about this long, grinding war. But the stalemate is about to be broken, not by swords on the battlefield, but by whispers in the palace and a huge shift in loyalty. This one verse pretty much sums up the whole period. Even with all the fighting, the momentum is clearly on one side. David's family and influence are growing, while Saul's house is just fading. You get this real sense that history is slowly but surely moving in one direction.
And then, boom, the tipping point. The weak king, Ishbosheth, makes a huge mistake. He accuses his general, Abner, of sleeping with one of Saul's concubines, which was kind of like making a claim for the throne. Abner, who's the real power behind the scenes, is absolutely furious at the insult, so he switches sides and promises to bring the entire kingdom over to David. But just when peace is finally within reach, David's general, Joab, still holding on to that grudge, tricks and murders Abner.
So once again, David is faced with a treacherous murder that was supposedly done to help him. And once again, his response is perfect. He throws a huge public funeral for his former enemy. He weeps at the grave, he fasts, and he publicly curses his own commander, Joab. He makes it crystal clear to everyone, this wasn't me. This is not what I wanted.
And this is so crucial. David's integrity literally pulls the nation back from the brink. By honoring the man who was his enemy, he proves to all those northern tribes that he's a man of character they can actually trust, even when his own people are acting out. He's building a bridge of trust right over that chasm of division.
Okay, on to chapter 4. With Abner gone, Saul's house is basically defenseless, and the whole thing finally comes crashing down because of one last, really cowardly act of treachery.
So, these two captains of Ishbosheths, they hear Abner's dead, and they see their chance. They sneak into the palace in the middle of the day, murder their king while he's taking a nap, and cut off his head. And just like that Amalekite back in chapter 1, they race to David, holding up this gruesome trophy, totally convinced they're about to be treated like heroes. And for the third time, someone commits a murder to try and get in David's good graces. And for the third time, he responds not with ambition, but with pure justice. He calls it exactly what it is, a wicked crime against a righteous man in his own home. He has the assassins executed, and then, in a final act of decency, he has Ishbosheth's head buried with honor in Abner's tomb.
And that brings us to the climax in chapter 5. All the rivals are gone. All the obstacles have been cleared away. David has proven his character again and again. The moment everyone's been waiting for, the moment of unification, has finally arrived.
I mean, just look at this timeline. David's rise was anything but an overnight success. From that secret anointing when he was just a kid, to the 7.5 years he reigned over just his own tribe, David waited. And because he waited, all the tribes of Israel now come to him, willingly. They make him king over a united nation. And his first move as king, it's brilliant. He captures the neutral city of Jerusalem and makes it a new capital that belongs to everybody, not just one tribe.
David was 30 years old when his reign began, and this united kingdom he so patiently built would end up lasting for 40 years. His refusal to take shortcuts, his refusal to seize power by force, that's what laid the foundation for decades of stability.
You know, when you zoom out on these 5 chapters, the main lesson is just unmistakable. David's path to the throne was long and it was messy, full of human failure and betrayal. But through it all, his constant choice to choose honor over ambition, justice over revenge, and patience over force, that's what allowed God's plan to unfold right on time.
And this whole journey leaves us with a pretty powerful question to think about. In our own lives, in our communities, in our world, when leadership is truly earned through character, instead of being seized by force, what becomes possible?